Respect is not something people decide to give you. It is something your behavior teaches them to take or not take. If you have been feeling overlooked, interrupted, dismissed, or quietly taken advantage of, it is not random, it is a pattern. And patterns are built on what you allow. You try to do the right thing. You listen more than you speak. You offer support when people are struggling. You avoid unnecessary conflict because you believe peace is more valuable than being right. You operate with high moral standards. You carry patience, understanding, and a quiet willingness to be there for others, even when it costs you something. And in your mind, that is strength. Because it takes discipline to remain calm. It takes control to not react. It takes restraint to not escalate every situation into something bigger. But over time, something begins to shift. People interrupt you more. They talk over you. They expect your time, your energy, your attention, without hesitation. They begin to assume your availability. They begin to take what you give without ever questioning if they should. And when you notice it, you don't feel anger first. You feel disappointment. Because you expected better. Because you believed that if you treated people well, they would treat you the same. You believed that respect would naturally follow kindness. But life does not operate on expectation. It operates on behavior. And behavior reveals truth. The truth is, the problem is not your kindness. The problem is your inability to protect it. You give too much. You tolerate too much. You allow too much. And over time, people adjust to that. Not always out of manipulation, but often out of habit. Human nature moves toward what is easy. And if you make it easy for people to take from you, they will. If you always say yes, people stop asking. If you never push back, people stop respecting your position. If you tolerate everything, people assume you are okay with anything. And slowly, your identity shifts in their eyes. Not to who you truly are, but to what you allow. Not to your values, but to your behavior. Your intuition knows this. Your good instincts speak to you in quiet moments. They tell you when something feels off. They tell you when someone crosses a line. They tell you when a situation is no longer balanced. Your common sense recognizes the imbalance before your mind even fully processes it. But you ignore it. You silence it. You tell yourself it's not a big deal. You convince yourself that it's easier to let it go than to address it. You avoid confrontation because you don't want trouble. You don't want stress. You don't want to disrupt the temporary peace you've created. And underneath all of that, there is something deeper. You worry about being seen as selfish. You worry about losing people. You worry about being misunderstood, so you stay quiet, again and again and again. But what you fail to realize is this: avoiding discomfort does not create peace. It creates pressure. It creates a quiet tension inside you that builds over time. A tension that does not disappear, but accumulates. Every time you ignore your intuition, every time you go against your instincts, every time you allow something that does not align with you, it adds to that pressure, until eventually it begins to affect how you see yourself. You start to question your own worth. You start to doubt your own value. You begin to wonder why people treat you the way they do, even though you give so much. But deep down, you already know the answer. You have been teaching them how to treat you. There is a moment that repeats itself in your life. A moment that seems small, almost insignificant, but carries weight. A comment that crosses the line. A request that takes too much. A situation that feels one-sided. You feel it instantly. Your intuition is clear. It tells you to speak, to draw the line, to watch out for what this could become if it continues. But then another voice appears. It tells you to stay quiet, to not make it awkward, to not create unnecessary tension, to just let it go. So you do, again and again and again, until something begins to build inside you. Not explosive anger, not visible frustration, but quiet resentment. A slow accumulation of past wrongs you never addressed. Moments where you should have spoken but didn't. Moments where you should have walked away but stayed. Moments where you chose comfort over clarity. And now the past is catching up, not in dramatic ways, but in how people treat you now, in how they value you, in how they see you. Because what goes around comes around, not as punishment, but as consequence. The energy you tolerate becomes the standard you live in. The Stoics understood something that most people ignore. You are not responsible for what others do, but you are responsible for what you allow. You are the master of your own emotions, and that means you are also responsible for your boundaries. There is a difference between being kind and being passive, a difference between being patient and being afraid to speak, a difference between maintaining peace and avoiding truth. And once you begin to see that difference, everything starts to change. You begin to notice patterns more clearly. You begin to see the same behaviors repeating themselves in different forms, different people, same outcome, different situations, same feeling. You begin to recognize manipulation even when it is subtle, not always intentional, not always malicious, but present. You begin to understand that some people will take as much as you are willing to give, and a little more. You begin to see where your own lack of vision kept you stuck, where you chose comfort over growth, where you chose silence over clarity, where you chose acceptance over self-respect. This is where personal growth begins, not in comfort, not in ease, but in awareness. A new understanding begins to form. You start to realize that being too nice has cost you more than it has given you. It has cost you time, it has cost you energy, it has cost you respect, and most importantly, it has cost you alignment with yourself. Because every time you ignore your instincts, every time you go against your intuition, you move further away from who you are meant to become. And eventually, you reach a point where enough is enough. Where the discomfort of staying the same becomes greater than the discomfort of change. This is where the shift happens. You begin to act differently, not aggressively, not emotionally, but intentionally. You speak less, but with more clarity. You stop engaging in meaningless small talk that drains your energy and serves no purpose. You stop over-explaining yourself to people who have no intention of understanding you. You stop seeking validation from those who do not respect you. You begin to choose yourself, not out of selfishness, but out of necessity. Because protecting your energy is not selfish. It is essential. You say no without guilt. You create boundaries without apology. You remove yourself from situations that bring unnecessary stress and tension. And slowly, something begins to change. Some people will resist this version of you. Some will question it. Some will test it. Because they were comfortable with the version of you that had no boundaries. The version of you that was easier to control. But this is not a setback. It is not failure. It is growth. Because the people who benefited from your silence will not benefit from your clarity. Life moves in ever-changing cycles. There are moments of happiness and moments of struggle. Moments of peace and moments of tension. Moments of progress and moments of failure. But within all of it, one thing remains constant: your choices. Your choices shape your path, Your choices shape your reality. Your choices shape your destiny and fate, not in some distant, abstract sense, but in the life you experience every day, when you choose clarity over comfort, when you choose discipline over avoidance, when you choose to trust your instincts instead of ignoring them. You begin to shift your life. You begin to build something stronger, a sense of peace and contentment that does not depend on others, a sense of self that is grounded, stable, and unshaken. You develop leadership ability, not because you demand attention, but because you respect yourself enough to not tolerate what weakens you. And in doing so, you become someone different, not louder, not harsher, just clearer, more focused, more intentional, more aligned. Because being kind is not the problem, but being too nice without boundaries will cost you everything. Respect yourself first, and the world will adjust.